Hey, it's me again, Tom Doyle, on the Unused Subs. I'm not Simon Hill, but he'll be joining us soon.
That's brilliant. I love that. That's good, mate. You've got a future in like voiceover work, eh?
Yeah.
Should I be worried? Because you guys are spending a lot of time together. I was in here on Saturday night, watched you guys on that comfortable couch out at Sky, Mount Wellington, and here you are again today. So
it's not a comfortable couch.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, it's.
I just sit in the
brutal.
slips. He gets opportunities, and I'm like, come on, man, take me along for the journey.
Am I going to get replaced at some point, Spoon? Like, you're bringing in Doyley an awful lot.
Give the people what they want to see.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, you guys.
Sucks is that he often gets referred to as the best-looking man on the panel, which, you know, even when you
There's
and I
no doubt
agree
about
together.
that.
But yeah, I know, but it's not good for the ego, though, is it?
This guy looks like George Michael in his heyday.
Oh.
You look like Martin Henderson on his
I'll
worst
take
day.
that. Oh, yeah, I'll still take that.
What about Saturday night, eh? And how awesome it could have been had this goal gone in.
Neyder Moreno was one-on-one! And hits both posts and stays out.
When it comes to executing the final part, that's been missing. And what was missing here was the ball crossing the line. One post, two posts. My favourite is it cuts to the bench, and you've got Gouldy and Danny Hay have jumped up, I think off the back of the first post being hit, but Corica's celebrated almost twice. He thinks it's in.
It should be in, really. It's a one-on-one with the keeper, and he's missed it. That could be pivotal. It could be pivotal.
So you're actually hating on Moreno for butchering a clear-cut opportunity, are you?
But he's one-on-one. He's an
aggressive,
import.
isn't
He
it?
should be
Says
putting those
the
away.
left wing back. Who scored how many own goals?
Well, if that goes in, I reckon we're looking at 90% done.
Yeah.
I think the tie is
That
very
leaves the
much
door
in
open.
Auckland's
That
favour.
leaves the door open a little bit.
It does.
Just a little bit, I
Honestly.
think, but it does leave it open.
2-0, it basically kills it off. Melbourne Victory need to come to Auckland in front of more than, 27,000 fans at Mount Smart Stadium this weekend and try and pull off a miracle. And when you look at how Melbourne Victory have performed against Auckland FC this season, and they have not scored a goal in 3 games, Tom, and at the weekend, didn't even register a shot on target.
Yeah, I think even 2 goals changes Steve's setup, his formation. It changes everything. They can protect that. 1 goal, it's a different dynamic. If they just get, they could score from a corner, free kick, then it's like, oh shit, do we revert back
First
to what
5
we were
minutes,
doing?
if someone slips or something.
Anything can happen. But 2 goals is a very nice cushion that you can actually think, we can protect this. We can put 2 banks, or 4, or 5, whatever, but protect the goal. Whereas now that 1 goal, that is not enough safety to rest your laurels on.
If it's 2-0 off the back of that, or if they score early, then I think it really does play into Auckland's favour. Yes, you can say it's obvious they're 2 goals up, but Auckland like to sit deep, they nullify, they absorb what is a pretty impressive arsenal that Victory can call upon. And that chance is great because it shows you, Guillermo May, he's a combination of Velcro and velvet. Beautiful touch. He's got the mentality to find a teammate, and then the runners forward. That's what Auckland has been all about this year, and Victory are going to have to commit numbers at some point. So that then plays into how Auckland want to play. So it's an interesting matchup at the moment.
I'll tell you what, I actually got it wrong as well before the game. I'll put my hands up.
Hey, that's good for
Yeah.
you. You admit
That's
that.
what a
I
lot of
thought
us
they were
do.
going to play a lot more
I
defensive.
don't do that.
I thought Steve was going to park the bus away from home, protect the goal. If we come back with a 0 draw, great. It was so open, even in that first 5 minutes. And as you saw in the end, the opportunity, it was stretched. They were going for it. I was like, fair play to Steve. He didn't hold anything back.
Even in the conditions as well, because
correct.
that was difficult, mate.
The
That was
conditions
very,
suck.
very difficult.
Can we talk about the conditions in a moment? I first of all want to mention Guillermo May, because after last week's podcast where we had Dan Hall, I was in serious danger of having my car towed. I'd parked in is it a bus lane? After 3 o'clock, it becomes a bus lane outside
Key
Tyler
Street.
Street Sport. Yeah, it's Key Street. So, and I looked at the clock and I'm like, oh shit, it's 3:15. And so I got out there, and the parking wardens are basically circling. They're waiting for the tow truck to arrive. And I'm like, really sorry, we've been in here recording the podcast. I moved the car and I put it in the loading zone out here. As I'm parking up, who do I see on a Lime Scooter but Guillermo May and 2 of his mates? And I'm like, hey, Guillermo, what's going on, man? He's like, oh, yeah. Introduces me to his mates. This is the guy from the podcast. I'm like, yeah. Come inside. Dan Hall is still here. And I said, oh, you'll never know who I just saw outside. It's Guillermo May on a Lime Scooter. And Dan Hall says, Was he really? He's under an injury cloud. He was having a scan on his knee this morning. And here he is, hooning around the city on a
least
on
he's
a
not
Lime
walking.
scooter.
He'd been cleared, yeah.
I'm assuming he was cleared, but yeah. So
He played well.
he
by
did
the way.
play
He
very
did play
well.
well.
And in a scenario where, and this is what he spoke to us about a couple of weeks ago, the benefit of having Max Mata up front and
Yes.
Guillermo May playing a little bit deeper, and clearly it changes when you've got Jesse Randall instead of Max up front. And despite the change and despite the slight tweak to what he was doing on game day, still played absolutely brilliantly.
Yeah, as did Jesse Randall. I thought he was making all the right runs. He was getting in behind. He's got good pace. It was
Spinning
just
into the channels, wasn't
spinning
he?
into the channels. Yeah, we were talking about it after the game, but just that final pass, final finish has to be quicker when you're in finals footy, especially. You don't get a lot of opportunities, and there was a few occasions where he just took maybe one extra touch where that needs to be out your feet. Goal.
That's a big one as well. No Roderick Miranda, which
Yeah.
he was scratched, I think, in between the squad's been announced and then the 11 or the matchday squad.
Picked up an
being
injury
confirmed.
on Friday or something in training.
BJ Hamill gone. The goals scored in the spot where Josh Rawlins is. He's a right back who's filling in at centre back. And Mitch Langerak not in goal. That is a massive concern because they'll come over here, they want to go after the game, but they need that defensive foundation to rely upon to repel Auckland. I think without a decent contingent of those returning players coming back, Auckland are a very, very big chance to score. And then it becomes, can Melbourne score more than Auckland? It's a bit of a shootout. And they haven't scored past them in 270 minutes this season.
No, and it's the haves and have-nots, isn't it? Because you've mentioned that Melbourne Victory are really battling with their personnel in the defensive end. Tom, the Auckland FC defence is rock solid, and you know exactly what you're going to get when you name Hiroki Sakai on the right, Nando and Dan Hall in the centre of defence, and then Francis de Vries. And God, he was the best player on the field on Saturday
I
night,
agree.
wasn't he?
I think he had a great game. The biggest show for that was Azani going off in the 60th minute. It was, as we call it, probably the battle of the game. I thought it was going to be determined on that. They both go down those sides.
Yeah.
Auckland go down the left, Victory down the right a lot. And to see him going off uninjured just because he wasn't playing well means De Vries got the better of that. And then as soon as he goes up, De Vries sets up, the crucial goal that Logan got on the back post and attack. So, I mean, that's a Kiwi to Kiwi goal as well, So
yeah,
to see
connection.
those boys doing well, which is why I've got a lot of respect for Corica. He's brought in some great foreigners, but he's giving these Kiwis a chance to shine, and they're doing so. So it's bloody brilliant to see.
I think just to break it down for people at home, what's happened is Francis de Vries has gone past Azani. He's got the ball in, and Josh Rawlins is a good 2 or 3 yards in front of the near post. So he's the centre back. And the ball's on his side. When you are in that situation, you do not want to go too far from the front post position. Because he stepped out, Lachlan Jackson has had to move across as well. Piece of string, so both of them go. That's then allowed a bigger space between Jackson and Casey Boss, and that's what Logan Rogerson has attacked. So there's a defensive issue there, which has been compounded by the fact that they've got a makeshift centre-back pairing. That was the big issue.
Tell you what was a big issue here on Saturday night. So we mentioned last week about me involved with Betcha doing the hosted pot. The stress and the pressure of taking on almost $7,000 of punters' money and trying to find the right bets nearly broke me, eh? And so I thought I'll go out on a limb and have a few like multis, but I thought some of the safest bets in my own mind were Auckland FC to win or draw, because I didn't see them losing.
Is that an option? You can go win or draw.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then the other one, which I really liked, and I got on it, was anytime assist with Francis de Vries. And so this place obviously went apeshit when Logan Rogerson scored, but a little table of me and the Betcha crew, when we realised that we had picked up Francis de Vries anytime assist at $8.50 and I put $500 on it.
Oh, how good.
And yeah, that's probably why my throat is a little bit sore. And then the group chat, the Betcha group chat went completely bonkers, like, oh, Goran, you're an absolute legend. Oh. And then towards the end of the game, the Neyder Moreno double poster. If he scores that, one of our multis would have come through paying $12, and I had $1,000 on it.
Mate, I'll tell you what, it looked like a vibe down here, by the way.
It was amazing, man. Like the square, Takutai Square was
Yes,
full.
let's go outside.
Big screen. They'd cordoned off the area, and in here it was pretty much the same. I was up on the stairs behind me, trying to talk to the port that were in attendance.
Good
Obviously,
luck.
some of the port had gone across.
Did they want to listen?
No, absolutely not. They were, and funnily enough, they were singing a song about Francis de Vries and singing it all night, and they would not stop. And so I was up there with a microphone trying to tell people, hey, if you want to get into the hosted pod, and I should just shut up, Paladin. Yeah, not interested.
We shot down from the studio. We're like, all right, go down to Storm. She's down there with all the fans. I was like, looking at the time, it's Saturday night, 11 o'clock or whatever it was, and you could see all the piss guys in the background. This kid came up to the camera, up the fucking waz. I was like, you shouldn't have gone down there.
Who had won earlier in the night, 5-match win streak for the Waz. So yeah, it was so good, man. And just think, this is something that is brand new. A year ago, we wouldn't have had this in this city.
That's the cool thing.
It's really phenomenal.
It.
Yeah, really phenomenal that it has, Auckland FC has obviously exceeded expectations. We thought that they would be good, but they are the best in the competition. And the fans have gotten right in behind them. The Port are going to Melbourne to watch them in a semi-final. Fans are getting down to the downtown Auckland to watch the game on a big screen on a Saturday night. And we didn't have it a year ago.
I'm going to be honest.
Go on.
And this is a bit marginal, but I think this is the closest we'll come for a while after this year.
Ooh.
Yeah?
I think this is the
Look
biggest
at you being
opportunity
a
to
rain
make grand
cloud.
final, to have it in New Zealand, and I don't see it happening for a long time to come after that. But my reason behind that, there's a few different reasons, but one, Auckland have done so well, I think they'll probably lose some staff, but then also these young players that have now boosted the value. I think they'll look to go offshores as well. It's a dream of Kiwis to do that and re-stepping stone, use Auckland and bounce again. So it's almost like they're doing so well that it could be a negative for the coming years.
Yeah.
But that's my prediction.
And that's what we saw with the Phoenix last season,
Yeah.
right? Because they did so well, and then all of a sudden, Paulson gone, Ben Old gone, Finn Sermon gone. And yeah, we know the rest of that story. Spoon, you're looking pensive. Your brain's working overtime. What are you going to say? Spit it out.
No, I unfortunately, Tom might be right here. No, but
I was waiting for her.
It's not like, oh, geez, Tom, that was really awesome. It's
No.
like, oh, begrudgingly,
Tom,
Tom's correct. Yeah.
yeah, you might be right. No, but the mitigating factor, the caveat to this, which is a really good point, because this is how we also quantify success. Transfer fees coming in, players going overseas. It's validation of the development that is occurring in this country at the moment. The thing that's different is I think the Phoenix perhaps didn't investigate this as much as they possibly should, and heard Sean Gill on the Yellow Fever podcast speaking to some of the things that they're going to change. I think Auckland are probably starting to look at contingencies at the moment. The player pool that we've got for New Zealanders is now so deep that you can start looking at people to bring back. So if you do lose Max Mata, who's going to go back to Shrewsbury, or who's still on contract at Shrewsbury, and he might get called back, Ben Wayne's off contract at the moment.
Yeah. Ben Wayne is a massive one, mate. And we were talking to, like, myself and Charlie, who's with the Betcha crew. He's the guy with the long black hair that you see on all of their
You should
social
bring
media.
back the Hanson locks, by the way. You and Charlie. Good combo.
I'm growing it out, mate. Me and Simon Hill, who will be joining us shortly. But Ben Wayne is a really good friend of Charlie's. They grew up together and played football together. And we were talking about the opportunities that exist for Ben Wayne in a World Cup year. Come on back. You know, the Phoenix were battling. It's his old club. Or Auckland FC, given Max Mata might be going back to the UK. I think there's definite legs in Ben Wayne, the Wayne train, coming back to the station.
I'll tell you what, that World Cup coming up, you're right, it could draw players back.
It's
they
a
want
huge
to be
carrot, man.
in front of the All Whites coaching staff at all times. And all eyes are on Auckland, as they probably will be again next year. So I think you could be right then. Maybe there will be some hope next year as well. But I do still think that this will be the biggest opportunity for a while that Auckland have of hosting a grand final in New Zealand.
Okay. No, we're not cutting that one off. Tom's...
Okay. Well, where do you want to take
enough,
it then?
Enough about
No
the
negativity, eh?
the kind of the bad linings of success. Let's talk about our home semi-final this weekend. We got the text before. Thank you, Amanda. Only 1,000 tickets left
Well, by the time this goes to air, mate, there won't be any tickets left. So maybe we should actually be celebrating, hey, it's sold out.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
It's
Like, wow,
sold
it's
out.
sold out. And we're not surprised by that, Spoon.
No, I think it was like 20,000 tickets had been sold in the space of 48 hours or something. Absolutely stupid. To Tom's point, we don't know what the future's going to hold, but we know what right now is giving us. And it is phenomenal. Who would have thought that Auckland comes in, first year, silverware, first playoff game, 1-0 away at AAMI Park.
Yeah.
Now they get to bring an advantage home, and I cannot wait to see what Mount Smart is going to be like. What's kickoff? 7 o'clock?
6 o'clock, is
6
it?
o'clock. I can't
Yeah.
wait to see what it's going to be like at 4:30.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's better than AAMI Park.
Oh, yeah, AAMI
You know.
Park. What a letdown, because you know what? Across 2 fixtures.
Trying to be positive here.
No. Well,
Oh,
we
positive
are being
for
positive.
Auckland.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Mount Smart's unbelievable,
Yeah.
right? It's
27,200 is a sellout with the additional seating. And I know that if Auckland FC make the grand final, which I think we're relatively confident that they'll do, they're going to add another 800. So take the capacity up to 28. And again, the tickets will fly off the shelves. They'll be snapped up. But AAMI Park, far out. You've got to do better. I know times are tough, but this is a semi-final we're speaking of. Western United, Melbourne City, a little over 5,000 turned out.
No.
A bit better for Auckland FC, but that's partly because the Port sent supporters over to bulk up the crowd.
Yet
Yeah.
again, the Kiwis are subsidising the Australian economy, is what you're saying.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the it wasn't just the fans. It wasn't just the fans in attendance, Tom. Clearly, it's raining and the field's going to break up. But geez, what are the ground staff doing over there? Because
Well,
it really affected the quality of the contest. I think.
100%. But like, AAMI Park is meant to be the most intimidating place to go and play at. Like when you're walking out, it's always packed. Well, not always. When I was
When
playing
you were
there,
playing, yeah.
it was
because you were a
packed.
massive draw card.
Oh,
Tom. They're like,
big draw
Doyley's
card.
back in
Yeah,
town.
he's
Let's
back
go.
in town. Let's get down.
No,
and
but
have a
Melbourne's a
laugh.
football. But to
It's
the
a
point, though,
football,
it's a
yeah.
footballing city. So
Yeah.
you get made aware of this even before you've gone to the ground, right? Like if you're
Correct.
playing Victory, navy blue shirts out on the day of the game. You've got people that are talking about football. You know that you're going to be watched.
Yeah, well, the Phoenix, have they even beaten?
2017.
They beat them once, like
But
there's
it's a
It's a
graveyard
stigma.
for-
It's we're going to Victory away at AAMI Park, sold out. It's going to be hectic. It's going to be intense. You're going to have the 12th man against you for sure. But I didn't feel that all game. It felt like Auckland were everyone was a bit nonchalant about the whole thing, which played into Auckland's favour massively. Massively.
You've already called out a couple of people, mate. Call out some of the Aussie podcasts and media that said, all right, let's have a look at the semi-finals. City probably get over Western. There's no chance that Auckland getting past Victory, though.
Yeah. But obviously they're probably thinking the same thing. It's Victory away, who wants to go there? But Auckland do. They showed up. I thought Steve did a great job in how he set up. It was probably not what Victory was expecting. It certainly wasn't what I was expecting. And he just took the game to them. And now they're coming back in what I think is a 80-20%, as you mentioned, in favour of them going through to a grand final. So, what's not to love in Auckland? It's going to be a massive few weeks.
The weather probably impacted one person in particular more than most. When Logan Rogerson scores the goal and charges over to the travelling Port support, the guy holding the the guy on the drum, the guy. Sorry, I don't know your name. The guy on the drum. He as the fans rush forward to celebrate with the Auckland players, he disappears. He's gone. He's just gone. He's gone. He's about to beat out a tune, and he just slips away.
Poor
He's
guy,
just vanished.
that's his spot as well. He's down there, he's leading the chants, and then Logan slides right in front of him, and all of a sudden just boof.
So we need to make sure.
Is he okay?
First of all, is he okay? Second of all, if he makes it to Mount Smart this weekend, can we get a little bit of protection, maybe some security? Because we're expecting big scenes and big things from the second leg, right? We've got to get some protection for the drummer.
Oh,
Poor bugger's probably watching. So.
It's like, it just,
I was scrolling through John O'Ross's story on Instagram, and he's pictured at you. I isolated him, and then I watched it about 5 times. Poor guy.
Hopefully everyone was celebrating the goal and wasn't focusing too much on the drummer. But good observation from yourself.
Yeah, well, I only know it because Spoon sent it through to me
Thanks,
the other
Jono.
day. Yeah, mate, but look, let's look at this seriously. and it's something that we spoke about at the end of our podcast last week, Spoon. But we are right smack bang in the middle of probably the most purple patch of New Zealand football's history, given everything that's happened over the last few years. The co-hosting of the FIFA Women's World Cup and the Football Ferns securing an opening night win. The Wellington Phoenix with their best ever season last campaign and narrowly missing out on a grand final.
Selling players at the end of it to Premier League sides, to MLS clubs.
Not just that, Macy Fraser, who's joined us on the Unused Subs, a record transfer to the NWSL from the Wellington Phoenix. Auckland FC is created. Auckland FC wins the Premier's Plate. The All Whites are going to the World Cup for the third time in their history. Has there been a better period to be a New Zealand football fan?
2009. 10.
Was-
That's another purple patch, to your point. The discussion is around that. The Phoenix come online, they make finals football. I mean, Bahrain is...
That was epic. That was truly epic.
Huge night.
Yeah.
I do love this conversation, by the way.
Yeah.
What do you reckon?
Well, we were younger
Speaking
then,
of
right?
purple
We
patches.
were younger, so it meant more to us. But I'm seeing this massive influx of young kids getting into football at the moment. And so what that meant to us is going to... What we're going through now will mean what that felt like to us back then to these kids now. You've got icons to look at. You've got your Chris Woods, now your Logan Rogersons, all these players that they're going to be so invested in leading into this World Cup. I think it is a year of football, to be honest, and it's going to be epic to be a part of.
The difference in dynamic is that we had Ryan Nelson, Ivan Visilic, Ben Sigmund, and it was all about resilience. It was all about being staunch and stoic in front of the odds.
It's been flipped a little bit, hasn't it?
It has now.
Yeah.
And I tell you, the thing that's changed for me, we've got Woodsy. So Nelly was obviously a defender. Woodsy's banging in goals. That is speaking to how we're now approaching our football. Marko Stamanic,
Being old.
Ben Old,
Libby Kakache.
Tyler Binden. Like, these are all players that can play. And the thing that's different, and I think this is probably going to be what separates it, Doyley, is that these guys are now being unapologetic in how they want to play the game and how they want to play with a brand of New Zealand football. And that brand has changed a little bit. They're now talking about what they want to do to oppositions instead of just potentially surviving.
Yeah, that started happening with the Danny Hay era a bit. They started playing this really football-based product, essentially.
Introduced a new generation.
Correct. They introduced a new generation, and a lot of those players now are playing a lot of football offshores, and they're doing well. Brian Thomas, good to see him back as well.
Yeah, he's
2-year
re-signed, eh?
extension. Yep.
Extension. So you've got all these players actually not just overseas, but competing at high levels overseas and doing well. Woodsy, 101. But now also you've got two teams in Auckland, two teams in New Zealand, one in Auckland, giving more...
There's another expansion team, eh? Look,
Right.
they've been so
Hey,
successful.
they need one.
Yeah.
Another one. Bring it on.
Yeah,
Aussies are struggling.
all
South
compla-
Auckland,
See
South
it all,
Auckland
yeah.
FC.
all complaints to Tom Doyle's Instagram. That's what
But you've got now all these opportunities for Kiwis to shine. And, yeah, I just see the door open for the next 12 months for it to be a massive, exciting period. And I think the way that they're playing is suited for where all our players are in the world at the moment. In Europe, the way they're playing at Auckland, the coaching methods there, it's all adding to what has been driven into them over the past 8 years.
Just a quick shout out to Finn Sermon, who's hit the ground running, came on
Yeah.
the pod a couple of episodes ago. Man of the match in his most recent game in the MLS for Portland.
Yeah, still wearing those dark sunglasses in the nightclubs, though,
Love
eh?
that, yeah.
Stop it, Finn.
Well, we're talking about attack, but then look at that. Like, you've got Alex Paulson, De Vries, who else?
Nando
Obviously
Pijneke.
Finn Sermon, Nando Pijneke, Michael Boxall. You're not short of options in the back line either. So, it's going to be a bloody good squad, going forward.
Oh, man, this is what I cannot wait to see next season. All these New Zealand players here and abroad vying for a spot at that 2026 FIFA World Cup. It's going to be absolutely magic. Of course, we've got the very small factor of an A-League Grand Final to potentially host.
Yes.
How confident are we, before we bring in Simon Hill, how confident are we that Auckland FC will make it through and host an A-League Grand Final? I'm confident.
I'll give my prediction. I think we're 80-20% to win against Victory this weekend. And then I think it's 60-40 in our favour. So I think the odds are in our favours. And like I've touched on before, I think this is the best odds we'll ever have.
I'm not going to jinx it. I'm just going to say if we do make the grand final, then what a proposition that is. It looks like City would be there if Auckland do step foot out onto the field at Mount Smart. That's Socceroos against All Whites. Matthew Leckie, Marco Tilio. Oh, what a game that would be with all the pressure, with all the jeopardy at stake. Yeah, that's pretty special.
I think it's a good time to bring in legendary A-League football commentator Simon Hill, who is tragically a Manchester City fan as well. So I think a good place to start would be, Simon, when is a handball not a handball in the FA Cup final against Crystal Palace?
Yeah, that was a little bit disappointing at the weekend. I had to choose that word very carefully. To be fair, Crystal Palace executed an excellent game plan, and no real complaints. I mean, you can talk about the refereeing decisions, and there's a couple there that I clearly wouldn't agree with. But over the course of 90 minutes, we didn't do enough to win it. It's as simple as that. If you have 78% possession, which we did, you've got to force the goalkeeper into a lot more work than we did. But on the day on Saturday, no complaints. And if I have to lose to any team, I think it's nice to lose to a team like Crystal Palace who've never won anything before. So it's great for them. Much prefer Crystal Palace and that horrible shirt you got in the middle of your back wall.
Which one are you referring to? This beautiful red number.
That piece of toilet paper in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. Much prefer to lose to Ted Lasso FC. Although, Simon, really quizzically, you had a chance from 12 yards out. Erling Haaland had the ball, then didn't have the ball, and Mamouche takes it. I mean, that is incredibly hard to understand, I think, for anyone, any football fan, let alone a City fan.
Yeah, it's a strange one, but Erling, to be fair, has had his problems from the penalty spot this season. He's missed a few, and he's never scored at Wembley. So I don't know. It's a strange thing for such a high-profile, ultra-successful striker to do. But maybe you just felt in the moment that Mamouche was confident, and the ball goes in nine times out of 10, and it's not even a talking point. But unfortunately, it was one of those nights for City, and we've had too many of them this season. So they've still got 2 games left, and obviously the Champions League is now the only target left, and really they've got to win both games against Bournemouth and Fulham to make the top 5 and ensure that they're in the Champions League. So that's the big target. If they miss out on the Champions League as well, goodness me, I mean that would be a poor season.
Well,
by our own lofty standards. But the weird thing is that being a City fan of 50 odd years, even talking about that, saying, it would be a disaster if we missed out on Champions League. I mean, it is ludicrous. I was there against York City when we were in the 3rd division.
Exotic.
This is nothing, People are going, how are you dealing with the crisis? I'm like, listen, I've seen a lot worse, pal.
Yeah, from the outhouse to the penthouse, which is essentially where Nottingham Forest and Chris Wood are, right? I mean, they were 4th from bottom at the end of last Premier League season, and then thanks to Woodsy's 20 goals, Tommy, they're on the verge of Champions League football, which is absolutely sensational, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's a catch-22 for me as well, because I also support Manchester City. So,
oh my God, that was
good man.
Accidental.
Yeah,
my grandparents are from Manchester, so again, I grew up supporting players like Ireland back in the day, so I've seen it all as well, but probably not as much as you, Simon. But yeah, look, I think there's a lot of people that are supporting Nottingham, especially from New Zealand. Everything else seems to have sorted itself out, the bottom and the top of the league, and it's just that middle ground now for Champions League footy, and who doesn't want to see a Kiwi in Champions League next year?
It's congested though, right? So I think everyone's like 7th to 3rd, Simon, and I know you'll be across the numbers a lot better than I am, but it's 66, 66, 65.
There's 1 point separating them all, right?
It is so tight.
Yeah, it's an amazing race really. Behind the top two, I think Arsenal's win last night secures their spot, and it's amazing really that it's taken until now for them to secure second spot, and then Newcastle, Chelsea, Villa, Oz, Forest, all in the mix. We can go third, I think, without looking at the table in front of me, because we've got a game in hand. So we played Bournemouth on Tuesday, and Newcastle's loss to Arsenal means that we can go third if we win on Tuesday. But but the way we're playing at the moment, that's no foregone conclusion. And then we've got Fulham, I think, on the last day of the season. I think Forest play, is it Chelsea?
Yes, to really nail it home, Simon, at the moment, is Chris Wood the best Australasian player that we've got? It seems like we're producing talent on this side of the Tasman, and I'm not sure we truly appreciate him at home, so we're going to go to an external source to verify how good this man actually is at the moment.
Yeah, look, he's definitely the best Australasian player at the moment. I don't think you can dispute that. The level that he's playing at and the level that he's performing with Nottingham Forest, it's incredible. What an amazing achievement if he was to get into the Champions League as well, on the back of those goals. It's been a truly remarkable season, both for Chris Wood and for Nottingham Forest. I actually think, unfortunately, they're probably going to miss out on the Champions League because they've just hit a dip in form.
Simon, no. That's not what you say on the Unused Subs.
We'll edit that out, Simon. Don't worry.
Primarily
we'll
a New Zealand audience. Okay, so why don't we just wind it back and then say something positive about Forest making the Champions League?
And how good they are to watch as well, Simon. We'll give you the second chance.
Yeah, I think it's, as I say, that unfortunately that they've hit the blip in form at just the wrong time. I think they've only won one of their last 6. Before then, they were top 3 virtually all season. But whatever the final league table says, they've had an amazing season.
Yeah,
really an incredible season. And Chris Wood, best Australasian player.
That dip in form, it probably coincided with the World Cup qualifier, because he went off against New Caledonia, right? And then he gets back to the UK, and all of a sudden, for a number of games, Forest don't have their leading marksman, Tom.
Well, he was scoring every week, right?
Yeah.
And it's dried up drastically, really, towards the end of the season, and I think that's probably in line with the form, as Simon touched on, of Nottingham. The big thing, I think, is just looking at the players above him, Mo Salah, Erling Haaland. You're putting these guys, best players in the world, and he's kind of keeping up in terms of stats with these guys. So it's just incredible. He's one of the best players we've seen ever, I think, come out of New Zealand.
Yeah.
Well, here's a key stat for you, Simon. Mark Viduka, 92 Premier League goals. Chris Wood, currently 89. That's historically great.
So with a hat-trick against Chelsea, final day of the season, he goes level with Big Dukes.
No one likes Chelsea. I think we can work around that.
Bringing it back closer to home, Auckland FC are well and truly in the heads of Melbourne Victory. We've all seen what they did in the first leg at AAMI Park, but now across 3 fixtures, Victory, who have dominated possession in those 3 fixtures, they haven't scored a goal. And on Saturday night, they didn't even trouble Alex Paulson. Not a single shot registered on target. How do you view it? Are Victory in trouble when they come up against Auckland FC in the second leg playoff?
Yeah, well, first of all, they're not the first team this season to run up against that sort of brick wall, if you like. I think it's one of the foundations of Steve Corica's team. He's made them very hard to beat, very hard to score against. They're fantastically well organised. Again, but maybe a little bit similar to Nottingham Forest in that I don't necessarily think they're always the best side to watch aesthetically, but that doesn't matter if you're getting results week in, week out, and they're certainly doing that. I think it's probably 70% in Auckland's favour, maybe even 80% to be honest. With the second leg to come at home, with that noisy crowd behind them, it's going to be very difficult for Melbourne Victory. Now, they're capable of scoring goals. There's no doubt about that. You look at the front 4 of of Melbourne Victory, Virgos, Valupale, Arzani, Mashash, Piscopo maybe to come off the bench.
Yeah.
Teague can score. They're a good side, Victory. But if you look at their goals for record, I think they, after Melbourne City, had the lowest total of goals scored out of any team that made the finals. I think it's been in part their Achilles heel this season, that they've not quite scored the goals that their general play has warranted. I don't know what the reason for that is, but certainly against a team of the quality of Auckland, playing away from home, I think it's going to be very difficult for them. However, I'll add one little caveat to that. We all thought that last year when they went to Wellington, and they managed to get a result.
It's not a little caveat. It's a huge...
history can repeat. But,
I think, viewing it from your side of the Tasman, it might be perceived as little because it's so far away. On this side, it's a massive caveat, G.
Oh, absolutely. And you and I were both there that night. It's almost a year ago to the day, isn't it, that Victory came along and spoilt the Phoenix party. And, on that night, I remember the Phoenix were battering the Victory goal, but just could not find the back of the net until 99 minutes, Tom. So is there a chance that, there's this heightened expectation because of what Auckland FC did in the first leg in Melbourne, that they're just going to run away with it? But how do the team and how do the fans keep their feet on the ground given what we saw a year ago?
That's the danger.
Yeah, I think there's still this nervous feel because historically in all sports that are playing, or New Zealand teams playing in Australia have really, really struggled in finals football. Australian teams always seem to have that killer instinct when it comes to finals games. That's why I never count out Melbourne. I've seen what they can do in finals, as we all have. And one step backwards from Auckland, and you can just imagine Melbourne will be all over them. But it didn't impress me, that Melbourne performance. The crowd actually didn't impress me either, as we touched on earlier. I'm not sure what Simon's thoughts on that, but when I was about to watch that game and sit down, I was expecting this sold-out, packed-out AAMI Park as we're used to seeing in previous finals games. But it just lacked a bit of that, I don't know,
that
scare
Melburnian
factor
element
that they
to it,
have.
right?
Yeah.
Where were they, Simon? Where were they, mate?
Look, it's a good question. There are issues with crowds in Australia. There's no doubt about it. Now, you're probably experiencing what we did in 2013 with the Western Sydney Wanderers effect. All of a sudden, you've got this club that's new and successful, and the stadiums are full every week, and you're going, well, what's the issue with some of the other clubs? Melbourne Victory had an issue with part of their active supporter group, the North Terrace, a few weeks ago. It was to do with homophobic chanting at an MPL game, where they'd gone instead of a Victory home game because it was Pride round. So 8 fans had been banned. Now, whether that's affected, the noise levels of support in the active areas, I'm not quite sure. Like, that looked to me quite full. Unfortunately, the A-League in this country, I'm talking Australia here, doesn't get very much publicity. And the reason for that is that between 65 and 70% of our media here is owned by Rupert Murdoch, News Limited. And News Limited, as you well know, washed their hands of football a few years ago. So it's very difficult for the sports to actually get mainstream coverage and therefore traction. The fans are there; they will turn up for some of the big games, but it's not an easy sell in this country at the moment. There's a lot of obstacles up against it, both internally and externally, where the major media outlets has an agenda against the game succeeding because it doesn't have a business interest in it.
If you reference 10 years ago, the overall standard perhaps has dropped off a little bit, but that's because there's less money to spend. So we're not getting in those kind of middlemen from Europe, the players that will go into that second and third tier club in the A-League. Like the likes of Newcastle, for example. They've only had the one Japanese lad, Kudo, down the right-hand side. That's really set the world alight for the Novocastrians. That said, it does feel like we're reverting back to a previous generation where we're giving a lot of time for the youngsters to come through. And this is something that I think needs to be jumped on more. Sell them as heroes. Sell them as a scarcity. See them while they're here. Look at the Golden Boot, for example. Nicholas Milanovic, Noah Botic, Archie Goodwin. These are all players that are destined for greater things and destined for horizons beyond the A-League.
Did you mention Segicic?
Adrian Segicic as well. Already gone to Europe. That's something where I think, regardless of the media representation, you can establish that connection and you can get that community engagement. Are we kind of going back to that NPL style youth development, get them to Europe, so that we can see Australians and New Zealanders performing on that international stage?
Yeah, look, there's no doubt about that. The league's gone down that road through financial necessity because it's got no money, basically. So developing those kids has become paramount, and for financial survival as well, because they can sell them on for decent money overseas via the transfer market. It's got to be a balance. Of course, you want to promote those young kids as stars, but I'm not sure. And they've done this a fair bit, the APL. Come and see the next generation of stars because we're going to sell them very soon. Yeah, let's just put this into context. If this is my club, Manchester City in the UK, and they're saying, hey, come along and see Phil Foden, because in 12 months' time, we're going to flog him and make loads of money. I'd be thinking...
See him before he goes to Real Madrid.
I don't really
Do
want
not
that.
start selling to Real Madrid.
Yeah. Fans have got to have hope. Obviously, they want to go and see good young talent. I completely get that. But equally, they want their team to be competitive. Now, I'll give you one very good example of this. Up until January, MacArthur were second on the ladder and heading for finals football. All of a sudden, the January transfer window opened. Villeurbanne stormed out at a half. Okay, there's not much they could do about that, but they could have held him to his contract to the end of the season. But Yokohama F. Marinos dangled a bit of a check in front of them, and they grabbed it. So he's gone. Jed Drew signs for a club in Austria. He's gone. Ariath Piol signs for a club in America. He's gone. Oliver Jones signs for a club in Austria. He's gone. Dino Aslanigic gets into trouble with the law. His contract is ripped up. Okay, fair enough. That's 5 or 6 first-team players gone at a stroke. And what happens? Well, surprise, surprise, they tumble down the table, as quick as you put in the Christmas fairy lights away, and they miss out on finals football. Now, if you're a MacArthur fan, I think you'd be pretty irritated by that a team was not only broken up. At the end of the season is one thing, but midway through a season to effectively almost smashed to pieces a team that was doing very well. It won the Australia Cup as well. I think that damages hope. So I think it has to be a balance.
This is the exact thing that's happening with the Wellington Phoenix as well.
Mate, you've taken the words
raging.
right out of my mouth.
You build up these players, you sell them, and then you bring in weaker players or a youth squad essentially up, and who
Not the
wouldn't
same
be frustrated?
stage of the cycle, the development
It's almost
cycle.
like this lack of a want to do well in the league, more so try and make some money, and that's why Auckland have made them look like fools this year a little bit, to be honest.
The only difference being between Wellington Phoenix and MacArthur is that all of that, I guess the upheaval happened during an off-season, and then it was up to the Wellington Phoenix to try and figure out, well, who do we get in to replace these guys? They had a whole off-season to figure it out, and maybe through some recruitment and some player identification closer to home, they didn't get the mix right. Because let's look for a second at Auckland FC, who have Logan Rogerson scoring against Melbourne Victory in the first league semi. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Spoon, did he not trial with the Wellington Phoenix before the start of this season?
I think both Logan and Francis de Vries spent time or were on the radar of the
Now,
Wellington
who
Phoenix.
are some of the better players, New Zealand players, at Auckland FC this season?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So they had an opportunity, but to Simon's point about MacArthur, it's happening during the campaign. Must be bloody hard to try and rescue a situation at that stage.
Yeah, absolutely. But even just talking about those players doing well, that's because Auckland have recruited so well and brought in quality foreigners. Obviously, they can spend outside the cap a bit, where the Phoenix have brought in, I would say, far inferior imports, and so it makes everyone
I think
look
we
a
can
bit
comfortably
worse.
say that as well.
Yeah.
So there's one point I want to get Simon's thought on, because I feel like I'm making a big deal out of this, Simon, but Guillermo May releases Neyder Moreno. Neyder Moreno then goes and hits off stump, hits middle stump, and it comes back out. Does that give Melbourne Victory the sense that fate is on their side? Like, football is a weird thing. The mind of a footballer is a strange place. They didn't get a shot on target to challenge Alex Paulson, but at the end of the day, at half-time, they've had this moment where it feels like luck is on their side. Fate is with them a little bit. Does that fill the sails of Victory as they come across to Auckland?
Well, I think they'll be holding on to anything they can possibly get mentally, to be honest. It's the toughest place to go in the A-League this season. I think only Western United were the only team to win at Mount Smart this season. I think I'm correct in saying that. But yeah, you're right. If Neyder Moreno's shot goes in instead of back out off both posts, then I think effectively it's tie over. But I still think it's going to be very hard for Melbourne Victory. Look, you'll know better than me about the mindset of a footballer, but if it had hit both posts and come out and it was 0-0, the same as last season against Wellington Phoenix, then they would probably be thinking that, but they're still 1-0 down.
I think that's a really backhanded and sly comment from Simon. I've just referenced the fact that a footballer's mind is a strange place, and he's like, yeah, well, you'd know a lot about that.
Yeah, you are strange. You are very strange.
They're all strange.
Yeah, of course.
And I can just see the Victory having to line up, going out to warm up. The crowd's already in there, Auckland are out, and it's going to hit them that this is a big, big moment. And although I feel like they've got the arsenal to do it, I'm not quite sure the resolve's there, the intangibles, as the Americans would put them. Especially if you don't have Mitch Langerak and Roderick Miranda. I feel like they're the two big anchors that Victory need to navigate what will be a pretty hostile environment. No, I won't qualify that. Not pretty. It'll be a hostile environment, and Auckland will want blood. I'm talking about the fans, the city. They want to have their moment. They want to get to the grand final.
Well, the other thing is that they've picked up two big injuries from that first leg. Brendan Hamill, I think, is almost certainly out. I think he may have even done an ACL, although that's not confirmed as yet. And apparently Casey Boss was seen leaving the ground on crutches. So whether that rules him out as well or not, I don't know. Now, they've got a logical replacement in Adama Traore, but from memory, I think he's got an injury concern as well. So if both of those players were to be missing, that's two big outs defensively, and I think the task may just be beyond them. I don't think it's Melbourne Victory have got a very proud record in finals football. They are capable of going there and winning, but I think the odds are seriously against them.
Now, you're going to be calling the grand final on your side of the ditch. Who do you expect to be calling in said grand final?
I think it's Auckland, Melbourne City. That's
a pretty good final, Simon, if it is the case. Those are two very battle-hardened
honestly,
teams.
Melbourne City might be a bigger threat than Melbourne Victory. They were very good on Friday night against Western United. I call that game. If they get their noses in front, they're pretty difficult to shake off. So that would be a very interesting grand final.
While we've got you, Simon, you've commentated some of the most iconic moments in Australian football. I think back to, I think it was like midnight in New Zealand, and we watched John Aloisi score against Uruguay and then take his shirt off and tear around Homebush. Are there any moments that you'd want to have back where you think could have done that better or didn't like how that played out?
Yeah, strangely enough, that John Aloisi goal. In fact, that whole game, it's so strange when I meet people who love football. That game is front and foremost every single time. Oh, that you call that great goal against Uruguay, and that what a moment that was, and they're projecting how they felt onto me, because I'm connected to their moment in time. But our call that night, I thought was horrendous.
Really?
Not helped by the fact that, Craig Foster, who was my co-commentator, and we've spoken about this since, and we laugh about it. He was so emotionally invested in the outcome that professionally, he was all over the place. He was yelping and screaming, throughout the entire 120 minutes. He yelped all over the big moments.
He screams out Australia as John takes
and
off.
Johnny Warren and Ray Bartz, and there were just random splodges of paint on the canvas from Fozzie. And I remember going home that night being actually quite depressed because I thought we're going to get absolutely pasted for that call tomorrow. But of course, as it's turned out, it sort of represented what most Australians were thinking that night. So it's been remembered in a much kinder way, really, than I think it should have been. I don't look back on that game with any fondness whatsoever because it was professionally one of the most difficult nights of my life because I was basically dealing with a fan inside the commentary box.
That's what Piney does most weeks on the A-League, Simon.
Yeah.
Can I just have a word?
I think it's the way. I think it's the way it's gone in broadcasting. I mean, you look now in the UK, and me and a friend of mine over here, we exchange texts on this regularly, and we hate it that they're showing clips on social media of Rio Ferdinand celebrating and punching the air and hugging people when Manchester United won that Europa League semi-final. I saw the same with the BBC and Mark Bright at the weekend, or Clinton Morrison, I can't remember which, because Crystal Palace had won. I just think, there's a time and a place. You're doing a job of work. You are duty bound to be professional for that 90 minutes at least. I'm sure if Auckland win the grand final, Spoon, you'll be on the pitch afterwards celebrating, and that's fair enough. But I think during the actual game, I think you've got to be professional.
You've got a duty to the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Simon. Mate, we're just recording. The bar's shut today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. Have a good day.
What an absolute fuck.
What a weirdo that guy was. Some dude in sunglasses just came strolling into the bar here, Simon, gave us a whole shitload of attitude, and then just fucked off out of here.
It is it down on Monday.
Yeah.
Mate,
He's desperate for a fucking drink, eh?
That's brilliant.